A very lovely good morning for those who have just joined us here on BTM television, and for those that have, of course, been with us from the hour of 7 up until now. We do proceed with the topical discussion, as I did hint on earlier on, saying that we will be expounding on matters of national importance. So you should be able to, stick with us for this one more hour, that is from 8 to 9, as we'll be expounding more on the issues that are in Uganda and, of course, do deserve more explanation from the people that do understand the issues more, or maybe getting perspectives of different leaders in our societies. As we speak of today, we did have the State of the Nation address, and that was on Wednesday. And yesterday, Thursday, we did still have issues still relating from the State of the Nation. The State of the Nation did hint on several issues. We had the President hinting on the issue of the anti-homosexuality bill. We had the President hinting on the expenditure of government, him saying that we should be able to spend what we have and should not spend what we do not have, so as to be able to avoid borrowing. When we speak matters of borrowing, he did also hint that the government, through the Ministry of Public Service, is trying to merge different government entities to be able to, reduce all the expenditure, which has, of course, continuously stressed out the taxpayer. And, of course, that is in regards of facilitation and taking care of all the programs that government is running. He did also hint on security, and he did say that there should be discipline and also looking into matters of welfare of the army people, so as to maintain security in the country and also avoid the gun violences that we did have. But when we speak gun violence, yesterday I did see a report that another security officer did gun down his boss, but of course this was also not in the army, and it was a private person, but there was another gun killing yesterday. But with all these issues at hand, today I'll be speaking to Mr. Otim Levy. He is a political analyst, and he will be saying good morning to us in just a few. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning to the viewers. Now, happy Heroes Day today. Yes, we're here to always handle matters that are sensitive and then matters that should be able to build us.
Okay.
To become great.
When we speak Heroes Day, Mr. Otim, we are celebrating Heroes Day. About 51 medals are to be served out today to different people in different categories. What do you make of this other new formula of celebrating Heroes Day and not only focusing on the people that did fight in the bush?
Yeah, Heroes Day, first of all, thank you very much. Heroes Day, we're marking a journey that we have come from. Remember that Uganda has been a country that has been having a lot of issues within its interiors, and of course for those that fought, let can be political or any other engagements, but for those that fought and then led to the liberation of possibly governments that were not favorable to the humans or to human development, we will always be termed as heroes. Then, of course, back in the 80s, 70s, we always had a lot of scenarios of rebel, activities all over the country. And of course, there are people that sacrificed and put in their lives to try and liberate and bring us the peace that we're enjoying today. Of course, we also live to celebrate those people, being a Heroes Day. And then also to our mothers, to our parents who have always sacrificed to make sure that we're here, to even those that are fighting very hard to make sure that they come out of the traps and so that have been set onto them. We celebrate them as heroes because each and every day you live to always commemorate and then.
Earlier on there was a discussion that the doctors in Uganda were heroes, and that was, of course, for the time that the COVID-19 pandemic was around. And I guess I'm right when I say that they were heroes, and they are our heroes as Ugandans. But looking at the situation right now with the doctors, would you still say that the government is celebrating Heroes Day? Are you happy with us celebrating Heroes Day? Yet the people that are being considered as heroes in Uganda, that is the medics, pre-medical interns not deployed, the senior house officers on strike, would you say it is fit to continue celebrating the Heroes Day?
Of course, you get to understand that as a country we have little hiccups here and there, but it cannot stop us from celebrating an event or a day that we stand to remember each and every one that has been there. The medical doctors, those that fought both the two pandemics. We had the Ebola outbreak. We had medical doctors that stood ground and then tried to fight that to the end. Then we have the COVID-19 that came. We also have Ugandan doctors that really fought very hard to make sure that we come out of that. So, of course, to celebrate this day, of course, is to remember them and then to also assure them that we are much closer to them. We as a team or as government, we are looking at working together. So I think that's why this day is really into place, so that we can celebrate, commemorate, and then we see how we can continue working together.
And how best do you think the issues of these medical, doctors can be held? Because we understand it is a situation where government is saying, that is particularly the Ministry of Health, says that there is no money to look into issues of salary increment, paying the allowances and all that. How best can the government resolve this issue before we even start speaking? We are speaking matters of the state of the nation. So how can the issue be resolved?
I want to believe that, you see, as government, there's been already a directive to that effect of salary increment for medical, doctors and then the interns. And it has been on for some time. But then there is one thing, when the technocrats that are handling our financial institution, or rather ministry, come in and say that we don't have money. Of course, the president asked them and said, get the money and make sure that it is available.
But they've not followed through with the president's directive.
Yeah, but you see, with the way we handle things, it is just a matter of time. You can't keep on, being rebellious most of the time. At the end of the day, you need the medical interns. You need them to be in place or to be in position to help with the workload. You
see, Mr. Otim, when you say it is a matter of time, yes, it might be a matter of time, but then time is what we do not have as Ugandans, because people are dying in the hospitals. There are no people to attend to the emergencies. So would you say that the ministry or the officials in the Ministry of Health are now, failing at their job? Because even with the proposition that has been brought about, that is for the parents that can afford to be paying for their children to be able to be deployed and practice medicine so that they can get the certificate. All these, how realistic is this situation?
No, I want to believe that, you see, as a government, I've always, like I stated, that there are hiccups, and you can't fault that there is totally nothing that government is trying to do. But then, of course, looking at the current, state of our medical, sector, I want to say that there's been lots and lots of formalities in trying to restructure and then try setting and have these other parties also involved. Initially it has not been there, so they're just involving it and making it setting. Of course, these are changes, but changes always have a way they always affect the normal operations or smooth running of systems. But like I have stated, that government has always had the initiative to handle things the way they come. Government has always put in time to make sure that most of the difficulties, or most of the crises that most of these MDAs face are always handled within a possible shortest time.
We will be getting back to that discussion in just a few, because we still have other pertinent issues that are in connection to the way government is handling issues. But for starters, what would you say that were the hits and misses of the presidential address while addressing us in the state of the nation category?
Yeah, the president really emphasized on issues of human development, and we're very happy that it took that angle, keenly looking at ICT, looking at agriculture, and then looking at how we can utilize what we have the resources we have as government in order to try and then, you know, maximize on our profits so that we can utilize whatever we have. Then also the idea of cutting off borrowing. It has always been a hindrance to us because, you know, most of these monies that come from IMF and then World Bank and then other parties have always been involved and then, you know, with ties. So having those preconditions or having conditions that are tied into donations or other money that you are going to pay back has always been a hindrance. So for the president to stand and then say that we should utilize what we have within us, majorly looking at the ICT sector and then looking at agriculture as basis, you know, of points creation, it should be something that rather should elevate Ugandan's economy. But I'm also happy with the projections that he mentioned, that the economy is growing and in the next 5 years should be between 6 to 7%. I think that is fair enough. Then also emphasizing on the having most of our produce or commodities exported, widening our markets within the African territory, so that at least we can be able to generate, you know, more incomes, and then of course also for human, you know, capital development. That was very good. So there's a lot that was discussed, including the Kalangala palm oil, you know, thing, and then waiving off their loan, and then government saying that we shall also reimburse some more money to you. So most of the farmers that are within the Kalangala palm oil, you know, project are going to be beneficiaries. I think monthly they will be able to pocket some good sums of money, and of course that is a very good innovation. That's a very good, you know, initiative. And
then you're speaking issues that the president did address, of course. Now let us speak matters that you think the president should have addressed and did not really come out to address them properly, or even could have hinted on them, but then did not go deeper to give solutions and how Ugandans can go about them.
Of course, you see, when you tear it down completely, you find that there were a little, you know, I want to call it steps. He did not take the initiative to properly discuss on the issues of health that I think were lacking. He did touch on those matters, but then you see, as the health sector and then the education sector, those are the propellers of the economy. You know, you need healthy people, you need people with sound minds. Now, that is where we have been having trouble. So I had wanted to hear his stand in mostly partaking on what the agenda for education and then the health, what initiatives that are going to be, you know, emphasized, and then what do we Ugandans all expect in the next, you know, term. Of course, you know, the budgets allocated to those particular ministries are really, you know, of great, you know, of great importance, because we believe that those are key ministries. Those are
but then you see, when you look at the allocation, the budgets have been cut. Because looking at education, we did see the Education Commission, we did see different stakeholders in the education sector, you know, before the committee, the Budget Committee of Parliament, saying this budget has been cut. The money we were receiving last year was not enough and is now being cut. When you look at the health ministry, the money that was given has also now been cut, and this does of course create issues of you know, lacking of more funds to, you know, do the projects that are supposed to be done to, you know, of course, uplift these sectors.
But of course, you know, you see, when mostly you're talking about the cuts from most of these budgets, you should also be looking at what reasons that they're being cut.
Of course,
when you look at the Ministry of Health, why the budgets had expanded, you know, and gone, you know, risen or rather reached that amount, is because of the COVID situations that we're facing by then. There was a lot of money that Ministry of Education was taking. But then there have been some bits of upgrades in most of the health units and so on. But then I want to believe that the reason as why the budgets could have, you know, been cut off from them is because we need money for other initiatives.
And the initiatives you're speaking about could be debt repayment, right?
Yeah, we have always honored to pay debts because we don't want the interest rates to always go high, and then the penalties to come in.
No, Mr. Tim, if I can come there, exactly, that is why I want you there exactly, because it is money that is being now availed to pay the debts that Ugandans do have. The president in his speech points out that we should avoid borrowing, spending what we do not have. I'm sure he has said this statement some time back, but then when you look at the budget allocations, for example, the budget has been given to the president, that is expenditure. You had Honorable Samuel Uganda making noise all over for the clothing, that the budget, the budget for the clothing of the president. Aren't these, isn't the president, preaching, telling us to drink water, then he drinks wine?
The president has never in any way done so, and I want to refute those, that statement.
But we are spending what we don't have.
Right now, what was spoken by the president or head of state is exactly what I believe that he knows and he has proper records of. And His Excellency the President is one person that you can't easily fault or can't deceive with numbers and statistics. He always does factual findings before he can deliver messages, because he doesn't want to mix up himself. But on a proper state, the government of Uganda, through the domestic revenue, has been able to pull 26.something trillion. And that money, I believe that within the allocations that have already been mentioned, of course you always know that any time that there's budget approvals and so on, Parliament is given the mandate to always try and streamline on the budget, because the budget committee that handles this. Now, budget committee is given the task. They come up with their different allocations and then appropriations. But then Parliament, if you are dissatisfied as a member of Parliament or as a group, of course you always have to raise and say that these and these are improper. Then why don't we streamline or rather cut from here and then reallocate money to this and these sectors? That has always been done. And of course we are happy with the Honorable Semuju for standing out to speak. We always want sound members of Parliament, people that are representing our views as citizens, and then people who want the best for the citizens. So
are you saying that some of the allocations, if I can break some for you, one is the clothing of the president, that money, and you look at more money that has been put in the classified expenditure. You look at the budget that is being given to the prime minister to spend, the money for donations, for president, for the prime minister, the security payments being given to these different officials to pay for their security, which is even, of course, coming from the UPDF, and these soldiers are paid money there, and of course budget says you have to still cater for their allowances. The president is saying, don't even pay allowances. All these are unnecessary expenditures. If I'm to put myself in the perspective of the president, are they required? Should we go with them?
Of course, you see, you can't avoid certain things that have been put, under our constitution. And it's always a norm, and there's always been the norm. I don't think this is the first, budget that has always had that. We saw in the previous budget the same amount of money being allocated. We even saw surplus budgets coming later on in those very same sectors that you have mentioned about. And it has not been a new thing. We as Uganda have always been facilitating some of these positions, because I think the mandate and the constitution speaks about it.
That's what I'm saying is the president.
The only thing is that the money that was appropriated to possibly to handle some of those activities and events, if there was a complaint by some section of members of Parliament, then I want to believe that it has been streamlined, and then we're moving at
just from your discussion, from that elaboration, that's what I'm saying. Yes. Should we say that the president is telling us to preaching water and then drinking wine?
The president has never preached water, and I want to believe that whatever he does it with consciousness and a sound mind.
Because you know why I say the president? You see, the president heads all the government officials. He is the leader of the executive, the leader of government. And he does appoint the prime minister and the different ministers, and these are the people that of course are being involved in drafting these different documents that do lead to the budget. So that is what I'm saying. Is he preaching water, drinking wine, because we are continuously seeing these allocations being done. They are being regarded to be unnecessary, and of course that does inflict on the taxpayers' money, who does not even have money as we speak, because you know the current state of the economy.
Yes, yeah, you stated it well, but my main issue would not be for us to look at certain budgets. Those have always been mandated by the same parliament, because you see these are three arms of government. If the judiciary, if the executive, and then parliament itself come up with their own budgets and then projections. Of course, as the committee, that's the budget committee and under parliament has to sit and then verify, task the same people within those institutions to come and sit and query them on how these projections are about and how they are going to be affected. Of course, those are technical people that are employed by government. These are, some of them are civil servants that have to come, accounting officers. So they have to come and say that how are these budgets and what and how were they, how did they come about? So of course they tie it down, bit by bit, and there is what they call framework, framework paper that is under the budget. That is something that comes, I think, before we yes.
True.
So when that is done, of course they put it into the framework paper, and then it is presented over to parliament, and that is where you see the honorables, they say Jews and so on, come in and then try and tear it down and try and make it perfect, so that we can rather put it into implementation. So I don't think that outside what we are speaking, rather the president is basing on speculations or assumptions, but I want to believe that it's purely basing on what was presented to parliament.
Okay, then when you look at another issue that was put across by the president, I would speak the parish development model project. Now, he does, of course, in his speech hint that different economies that we do look up to have also, thrived on the service industry. That is where, different people are offering different services, and of course, that is where they are, trying to base their economies and growing them even way better than Uganda is. The president does emphasize the parish development model project on the other hand, and of course, that is agriculture and other things in there, but all dealing with agriculture issues. How do we move towards the president's speech? Because he says service industry, parish development model project, which does take us to agriculture, and even the project as we speak in different districts has never been started.
Yeah, you see issues of the PDM. I keenly watch the president, and his interest majorly is being based on how PDM can become a model kind of initiative, and then we as the citizens should use it to our to our most benefit, but then looking at the agricultural sector. But then also when you hear the statement, of course you see he was trying to bring the PDM, but then also looking at, for example, taking on the examples of some of the projects that have been done by groups of farmers and so on, looking at the Kalangala palm oil project, and then its projections, what is coming. So the PDM coming into play, and then of course the monies that are being dispatched to these different categories and the people. Of course the president wants to see results. The president is basing on facts. President possibly is basing on people that presented to him this model of or this initiative as something that is going to come, and try and pose a change into our citizens. And some areas within the country have already registered, tremendous, achievements, and it seems PDM to them is moving on well. But also waving and saying that the PDM money, there's no one that should be forced to pay PDM money before 12 months, which is, I think, the mandated time. They should be given the time so that they can invest this money, try and then, look at their
projections. In fact, he did make it 24 months. He did make it 24 months. Yeah.
So, to me, that is fair enough to whoever that is, partly involved with the PDM. But then also looking at the category of people that PDM is looking at, the 37% of the hard-to-reach people that really don't have the access to these monies and so on. PDM is being created to handle that category of people, so that they can also be able to be self-reliant, be able to, sustain themselves in the ways that they handle life.
And what happens to the service economy that the president seems to be, advising us to also, take a venture into? How do we even move towards the service industry?
Now, I've seen what he emphasized on, and saying that we as citizens should not only look at government possibly, and then the white collar jobs and so on, but then also take up the initiatives. He cited ICT, then he cited tourism, agriculture itself. So within the ICT, he was looking at the banking services, looking at financial services, so opening these mobile money, services. So he was advising that we should not sit but take up, get up and then take up on some of these initiatives, so that we can see, other than us waiting, but we should be able to create wealth using the services that are being provided. As I told you, that the country through NRM, the government through the NRM has given us the mandate to do whatever we want to do.
Okay. Mr. Otim, I'm sorry to take you back. I would like us to move to, of course, the opposition boycotting the events. But before we move to that, the president also did emphasize on Uganda and also the East African community and Africa at large to, cooperate. And also we did see him speak about the standard gauge railway, which has, it has been, I would say, a song for quite some good time. He says this next financial year we'll be, starting the construction of the standard gauge railway. Of course, he also did emphasize the industrial hubs, and we did see him launch one in Masaka just a few days back. Now, all these that he is emphasizing, create more industrial hubs, let us construct the standard gauge railway. All these require money, and he's saying Uganda should now deviate from more borrowing, from spending what we do not have, to be able to grow our economy way better. But the standard gauge railway, the industrial hubs, for all these to be constructed, for all these to be put up and used by Ugandans, because they will provide employment opportunities, need the debts to still be given to Uganda. What do we do?
Of course, you see, the president, if you're to listen to him tactfully, he is against the idea of us basing on money that we have borrowed to run initiatives and projects. Because you see, at the end of the day, the people that benefit are the ones that lend us the money.
True.
Now, looking at what we're collecting, as a domestic revenue, that the projection that within the next five years or so, turning from 26 trillion over to 30 trillion, that is of course something that we as a country should be basing on, that we should be able to maximize on our turn. The president came out and said that most of the industrial parks that have been, established are owned by government. Over 4,000 and something, industries or factories, providing over 150 something, thousand jobs. So of course that to a country like Uganda is something that is on a positive, because we are looking at how we should be able to benefit first. Now, if the external borrowing or the external financing can be reduced, and then we embark on our own ways of collecting revenue for us to boost our
which are not enough.
Of course, I want to believe that it can never be enough. We always want money. The government always wants money to run its initiatives. That's why you see that there are a lot of projections, but then they're trying to streamline on what can be handled fast, so that we can be able to generate more money.
Mr. Otim, I'd like to look at it in this angle.
Yes.
There are a lot of projections, but then let us come to reality. What is the reality? Are these projections realistic? Can Uganda be able to construct or build more industrial hubs without borrowing? How will we get those finances?
First of all, when you talk about borrowing initially is that we possibly looking at what category of loans are we getting to service, or rather to run our services and our country, the economy. Are they loans that are favorable? Are they loans that are tied to conditions that possibly, if I'm giving you this type of loan, then you should provide this kind of activities in your country, or you should be able to take on this without any delays. Then also the type of loans that we're getting. if you're getting a loan and then it is tied to giving out the rights of our waters of Lake Victoria, of course, you don't expect such a loan to be able to sustain you, because first of all, as a country, what we are fixing from the waters is quite a lot in terms of exporting our fish, and so on. And of course, such loans really don't come and then pose an effect to an economy. It's on a negative side. Actually, if you're to rate it, you should be on almost 10% in terms of development, but mostly the person that benefits is the one that gave you, loaned you the money. And of course, some of these loans also on the other side are quite very difficult to be cleared, because the time when you are clearing, already there are accumulations. So for the president to say that he's basing within the domestic revenue, of course we expect that there's going to be some bits of more taxation on most of what we're running in terms of business, business and our import,
and that is the taxpayer suffering.
Of course, the taxpayer has to be able to bear a little bit of the pinch in everything that we do.
Mr. Tim, just hold it there. The taxpayer should be able to feel the pinch, but then he is feeling the pinch at the expense of the corrupt government officials. He is not seeing the services that he is paying taxes for being delivered.
I think you had the statements that were made by the IGG, the boss, some time ago. Yes, he said that it is the mandate, and then it's the mandate of government through IGG and then those other organizations that have been created to fight corruptions. I mean, to fight any corruption. But then we as a citizen should not just sit and expect them to do the magic. We as the citizens have to stand up and then identify and do whistleblowing on some of these corruption scandals.
You cannot have done that.
We have always done that, but then you see that anything that we have touched on as Ugandans or as citizens, there's always been magic performed that such things come. You can see like the iron sheet scandal. If the Ugandans are not stood up, then I don't think there would have been any kinds of action taken on.
Then what happens to the other scandals? Because you did see a report being released by Kosase, and it was shelved by the Speaker of Parliament. She did, of course, not give chance to the report, which was, of course, citing issues of the taxpayers' money being put to waste. We should not only dwell. I think we should not only be dwelling on the iron sheet scandal, the NSSF scandal, because there's those have been, put to the limelight and they've been handled properly. But then there are other issues, because these are just two scandals. How about other scandals? How do we squeeze a government to be able to, give us value for our money as Ugandans?
No, but you see, they already, they already agencies or other bodies that have been created to handle alongside IGG. And when you're to look at the current report of the anti-corruption unit under State House, there's been tremendous work that has been done. There are lots of arrests that have been effected. There's lots of money that has been recovered from the people that took them. And of course, you see, you always want to follow that, and then you also bet that government at least is trying to put an effort to ending corruption. Now, how do we do it? Because as public service, or as government through public service, trying to merge and streamline and then cut on the expenditures, that is how we're trying to fight corruption. Ministry of Education, of course, with their permanent secretary, that is, Minister of Finance, with their permanent secretary, that is Mr. Ramadan Gobi. They have been able to put to task all MDAs to vet them and then verify the number of staffs that each sector has or each unit has, so that they can be in position to know how much money that is being dispatched to these different MDAs, and then how can we cut on the expenditure, because there's lots of expenditure going and then there is no returns. So probably is that there are loopholes within these MDAs, there are loopholes within these different ministries and so on, and then possibly maybe they're also doing ghosty payments.
Yeah, sure.
So with all these initiatives being implemented, I want to believe that it is on the agenda of fighting corruption, because you begin by cleaning the system, you begin by cleaning what is within our own reach, so that we can minimize on the expenditure and then increase or rather maximize on how we can profit from most of this.
So would you say that the government is committed to fighting corruption?
Yeah, government is truly committed to
then
fighting
corruption.
corruption.
What explains the situation where we are seeing the different ministers that are being cited out in the scandals that we do have, you know, attending cabinet meetings, attending the functions that are, you know, of course, official?
Yeah, you see, different ministers have been cited. That's where you see that the president himself came out and said that with those particular ministers is going to give them political punishments, or there's an action going to be
though they still have their positions.
So you of course, you see, you can't have their positions. It might not be like Europe where they will request you to resign, but of course, you know, with African setting, always everyone thinks that whatever that has been given to them should be a point of bread or basis where they can rely. But you know, the president is very tactical and he's a very calm man. He takes his time, and by the time he has assembled lots of information about a particular person, or I call it profiling. By the time he's done profiling you, then that is, you know, sound enough for him to take action on you. So with this particular issue about the ministers, I want to believe that he's at the, you know, forefront, and you know, let's only give him time. He knows what he's going to do.
You know, when you say let us give the president time, this takes me back to the other different corruption scandals Uganda has had in the past, with now the people that were in those scandals still even holding now, you know, bigger government posts. We have the current Minister of Security, that is General, you know, Jim Wezi, who was cited in a corruption scandal some time back. Now he is the Minister of Security and still holding a government position. But let us first, you know, shift away from that issue of corruption. We speak matters of the opposition boycotting different addresses. Last year, the opposition did boycott the State of the Nation address. This year, something happened, and they are saying that they will also be boycotting the budget process, that is reading out the budget to the nation. They say they'll also be boycotting. What does the government depict from, you know, these boycotts? What can the government learn? Where can the government correct themselves to be able to entice the opposition, which is supposed to be giving them advice or even critiquing their policies?
Of course, you see, any government, for any particular government to be able to sustain, you know, itself, there should always be both positive and then negative criticism. And of course, you see entirely, you can't fault government for each and everything. Sometimes as leaders we have to be tolerant. There should be a level of tolerance, and for those opposition leaders we should be looking at how they should take up the mantle to try and look at government rather as an initiative that is even serving their interests. Some of them rather are enjoying the same privileges that have been set for the other, you know, party members of parliament, right? So the NRM MPs. So for opposition to come out and then try and boycott some of these very important initiatives and events, of course, it shows a bad sign to the international community, or rather to the outside, you know, partners, that rather possibly there is a rift or division between the two in terms of ideological, you know, concept or so. But then, as government, we can't deviate from what interests the citizens. As leaders, they will handle themselves in that capacity. Possibly the boycott is also a sign to show that they could be dissatisfied with some of the rather the appropriations of taxpayers' money into the budget. Or
even the happenings in the country.
Boycotting the presidential thing could also be an initiative that they are not possibly happy with the head of state in how he, you know, he runs or handles these things. But then, of course, like I told you, that with leadership there should be a level of tolerance. If you dislike or don't like a particular candidate, that you shouldn't show it publicly, because one, it serves the interests of the people. Everyone in your constituency that you are representing, or is possibly doesn't take it the way you are taking. You might not be a person that likes the particular head of state, but then there are people within your constituency that like him. and rather, you know, subscribe to his ideology and then also follow what he is doing.
Mr. Tim, the opposition, particularly the leader of opposition, said that one of the reasons why they are not attending the State of the Nation address and also other addresses is, one, they still have people, their supporters, who are incarcerated. Different people are incarcerated, abductions still going and taking place. Am I right? Are they taking place or they are not?
Of course, you know, whatever comes to the media always has to be considered. So whatever that has been faulted, that there are abductions, of course, you know, sometimes police, as part of government, comes and then acknowledges that there is this happening, but then we are trying to handle it.
No. What I would like to get from you is, with that, is I want you to give me the validity of their points. How valid are their points? They say abduction is still taking place, taxpayers' money is still being wasted on different events, even when there is a proper way or a proper manner in how they can be handled, and of course try to save on the taxpayers' money. They are also saying that you know, they are fronting the COVID-19 pandemic to still be in the country, COVID-19 is still being in Uganda. Yes, the president did test positive, but then the World Health Organization did, of course, say that the COVID-19 is no longer a world threat. They also say it is inconvenient, you know, for them to, you know, go to Kororo and they are treated the way they are treated. They cannot, you know, object some of the speeches that are being made by the president. They can't make corrections, and this is their job. Are their points valid?
Members of parliament and in the opposition, you know, the racket have always come out to criticize government in every way, and there's always been a level of you know, understanding given to them by government or by the head of state. By the fact that they speak and even they behave inappropriately, and then he entertains them, shows you the type of person the head of state is. And then, of course, for them to say that they're not going to be given the mandate to rather object what he's saying in the State of Nation address, of course, that's not their day. That is the day of the president to read to you what the agenda of government is in short term and then long term projections. You don't have the mandate to come and, you know, begin, you know, posing hooliganism in an event that is rather organized for a head of state to address parliament.
I would say that you know, raising a point of order would not be regarded as
rather, you see, during the State of Nation address, it is entirely parliament handling the matter, and it is only, you know, the guardian or the custodian of the institution that gives you the mandate rather to raise an objection or so. So if the Speaker of Parliament has given the mandate to the President to speak, you have the right, or rather he has the right to be given the respect and accorded the respect as the head of state. You are a member of parliament. Your interest is to serve the people you represent. You can never be able to put yourself at the same level with the head of state.
Maybe it is but them putting across their issues.
You can correct him through the right procedures. That's why you are given your space within the chambers of parliament or within parliament as an institution for you to raise any concerns.
But then the president is not present then?
No, but you can see the president is not present, but he always speaks information. He has open space or open out, you know, sourcing a department that handles any kind of his statement. Anyone that makes a statement, including our talk show here, is going to be put into scrutiny, is going to be verified, and then presented to him in front of.
So you're saying their points are not valid?
So the points that they could have raised, of course, you know, 50-50, there are some that are valid, there are some that could be on the other side, rather to fault and give an excuse for them not to attend an event like that one.
Which ones are valid?
But then one thing that we should understand, the points that you have mentioned about abductions and so on, of course, we have, you know, always cited these things. And as a government, we cannot say that they don't happen. Of course, this happened, but of course, with what interests? Possibly could be political interests. You cannot cut out the initiative to think that whatever that you can say, rather, cannot be subjected to interrogation. Because that's why it happens. Now, on the level of corruption, or rather, saying that misappropriation of taxpayers' money, it is always there. There's accountability. We have COSASIN. If there's anything that you feel dissatisfied as a member of parliament, raise it in parliament during the time when you're given the, your mandate to do so, and then it can be directed towards the COSASE to be handled. Then also when you're speaking about particularly also in the same regard with boycott, we should be able to break it down. What is the interest, or what are the interests of the leaders of opposition? Government through parliament was not selfish to accord them space for them to be able to give an alternative budget conference. You remember,
was it even considered?
But most of the points they could have raised through their principle, of course, as being leader of opposition, he should have presented them to parliament, or rather to the speaker. And of course, most of them are always given into the research team, and then to those that are concerned about anything that has been broken policy analysis. They're given to them, and then those sit down and analyze what has been presented. Like I told you, there's open space sourcing, and government pays money.
You could conclude on that issue.
And government pays money for this event. I mean, government pays money for that particular department to be able to collect information within the interiors of Uganda for security, and then they should be, rather implemented, and then see how it can help.
Mr. Tim, we are time bad, but then there's an issue that they say, you save the best for last.
Yes.
There is an issue that is, of course, now biting up Ugandans, the anti-homosexuality bill. It was passed, it is a law in Uganda, as it was asserted to by the president. But we did see the president seemingly backtracking on, of course, his actions of signing the bill. Should we say that the president could be, having cold feet when it comes to the anti-homosexuality law in Uganda, with the comments he did make about it?
The LGBT has been, one very important initiative, and I mean, one important issue that has been bothering not only the citizens, but literally everyone concerned. And when you're to look at whatever that has happened, and the president appending his signature, of course he should have calculated his moves. And being a head of state and possibly an influencer within the East African bloc and then Africa at large, of course signing that particular law, of course, has put him at at the point where the international community possibly is looking at him as someone that has violated human rights. But then we as a country can't solely put our sacrifice our cultural norms, sacrifice what we have labored to build for us to be able to promote people's activities or other initiatives that are not able to project or bring. The president has spoken strongly, even in the Chankwazi retreat. He spoke about it. Even the time when he was addressing people, I think within the State of National Address, he spoke against it. He said that let them keep their money if they want, but rather you're not going to subject us to certain conditions. For me to be able to pick money from you, or rather for you to be able to help me, I should promote a particular thing, which is not within our cultural norms. You have not had opposition come out openly to speak against what the president did. They are very quiet. Why is that so? It's because they are calculative of their statements they are making. So rather, of course, I know there are already threats of sanctions. You've seen the United States through the embassy. The embassy, they have sanctioned the speaker. The embassy, of course, put up the LGBT flag and so on, and of course lower down our flag. That looks disrespect, because this is a sovereign state. We're an independent state. We might be somehow dependent, or rather through the partnerships we have had with the US for the last, I think, 80 or so, or 120 years. But that shouldn't deter, or rather shouldn't influence the way we handle our activities as a state. We as a state are independent in mind, independent to do whatever we want to do. We have other partners that rather deal with us openly without any preconditions attached to us. Because
you see, my question is, I'd like to know, are Ugandans being fooled? In just 1 minute, maybe if it could be expanded on. Are Ugandans being fooled? We are seeing the president assenting to the law, and then he comes back and says, if at all he looks or finds out that there are other sections that could be, of course, unfair to Ugandans, then he will be sending back the law back to Parliament for more revision. You know, wasn't he given ample time to read through the law? So this is creating, you know, a puzzle for Ugandans who would like to understand it way better. Are we being fooled as Ugandans?
Of course, I want you to know one thing, my brother Bruce. You see, there's a lot of pressure possibly coming from those other external factors and those that are advocating for this law and so on. But then I don't want us to think that the president is not wise in most of the statements he makes.
Okay.
He knows the decorum in Parliament is totally against the anti-homosexual, you know, anti-homosexual, you know, homosexuality. And for Parliament, they're the first people that approved it. You remember the first time they voted against it, the second time it was thrown back to Parliament, they still voted against it. So I don't think there's going to be any change in whatever you're saying, unless they're saying that the external forces should come and then influence Parliament so that Parliament can recall what has already been made into law. As we're speaking right now, it is into law. If you are caught in any of these activities, then you'll be liable.
Maybe yes or no, a yes or no answer. Do you think Ugandan Parliament can be, change? They can't be forced to have a change of mind.
Of course, no. Parliament has stood its ground and they are very solid in what they are doing. And if you were to go and even see how they have handled business in the previous business ever since, you know, the current leadership took over office, they have been performing.
So you mean even if
performed incredibly very well,
even after being given kintu kidogo,
even if you give, let me tell you, there are those that could have picked lots of money, possibly those that signed the minority bill and so on. But then I'm telling you, to be honest with you, that Parliament has stood by its ground. They have had it signed, and I don't think that they're going to deviate or change against what they have done.
Very many thanks, Mr. Otim Levy, for making time for us today morning.
Thank you very much.
And of course, for the person that was with us for today's topical discussion, we were expounding more on issues of national importance to deal with the state of the nation, and of course did depict some of the references that were made by the president, the communication looking into the different advice that he was giving us as Ugandans to follow, so that we can be able to uplift ourselves in this coming financial year. My name is Bruce Mugabi. We will be stopping here for today and for this week, but the daybreak does begin again on Monday, and I'll be seeing you tonight for BTM News Today. Good morning.